Hello friends. Many people think the difference between broke and rich is money, but the real difference is how they think when money is in their hands. Let me share a simple example. Two friends receive the same salary. One asks, "What can I buy this month?" The other asks, "What can I build with this?" Same income, different questions, very different futures. A broke mindset looks at money as something to consume. A rich mindset looks at money as something to circulate with intention. I once met a young man who bought the newest phone every year. He said, "I deserve it. Life is stressful. There is nothing wrong with enjoyment." But when pleasure becomes a habit and discipline becomes optional, growth quietly leaves the room. Another person I met used an old phone with a cracked screen, not because he was poor, but because he was funding a skill, a business, a dream. He delayed comfort so his future wouldn't have to. Broke thinking says, "I'll invest when I have extra money." Rich thinking says, "I'll create extra money by investing now." Broke thinking asks, "How do I look successful?" Rich thinking asks, "How do I become valuable?" This is very important. Rich people don't hate enjoyment. They simply schedule it after responsibility, not before. A farmer who eats his seeds will enjoy one meal. A farmer who plants his seeds will enjoy many harvests. And remember, wealth is not about impressing people who don't care, but about building freedom for the life you actually want. Money listens to mindset. Change the thinking, and slowly, quietly, the numbers begin to change too. Broke people often spend money to feel rich, not because they are foolish, but because they are tired. Tired of feeling small, tired of being invisible, tired of explaining why they can't afford things. So money becomes emotional medicine. A new phone, branded clothes, an expensive dinner, these are not purchases, they are temporary identities. For a few hours, sometimes a few days, the person feels upgraded. They feel seen, they feel successful. But the problem with buying a feeling is that feelings don't last. The excitement fades, the bills remain, and the silence returns, louder than before. This pattern is dangerous not because of spending, but because it trains the mind to believe that self-worth comes from outside. When money is used to impress, it quietly controls you. You start working harder not for peace but for appearances. And slowly, life becomes a performance where the audience doesn't even care. Rich people, on the other hand, don't spend to feel rich, they spend to stay free. Freedom means waking up without fear of the next bill. Freedom means saying no to work that drains the soul. Freedom means choices. This is why their spending looks boring to outsiders. They don't chase upgrades for validation, they chase stability for peace. They ask, "Will this expense make my life lighter or heavier?" If it adds pressure, anxiety, or dependency, they walk away. Their joy doesn't come from showing success, but from reducing stress. While broke thinking asks, "Will people notice this?" Rich thinking asks, "Will this trap me later?" The goal is not luxury today, but control tomorrow. That's why their lives may look simple, but their minds are calm. There is a quiet difference in how both react to temptation. When a broke mindset sees money, it feels urgency. Spend it before it disappears. There is a fear that if enjoyment is delayed, it may never come. This fear comes from instability. When income feels uncertain, pleasure becomes immediate. Rich thinking is calm around money because it trusts the system it has built. It knows that delayed gratification is not denial, it is strategy. When a rich person skips an unnecessary expense, they don't feel deprived, they feel protected. They understand that every rupee saved is not a loss of joy, but a purchase of future freedom. The broke mindset sees saving as pain. The rich mindset sees saving as power. Think about this. Broke people often finance lifestyles they haven't earned yet. IMEs, credit cards, buy now, pay later schemes. They promise comfort today in exchange for stress tomorrow. It feels smart in the moment. Everyone does it, the mind says. But what is really happening is this. Future energy is being sold for present pleasure. Rich people are very careful with debt because they understand one simple truth. Debt steals options. When monthly obligations rise, courage falls. You can't take risks when survival is at stake. So rich people don't ask, "Can I afford the EMI?" They ask, "Is this worth losing flexibility?" Freedom is fragile, and they guard it fiercely. Broke people often celebrate spending as a reward for suffering. I worked hard, I deserve this. Again, not wrong, but incomplete. Rich people celebrate differently. They reward themselves with rest, time, learning, health, and sometimes experiences, not objects that demand maintenance. They understand that real reward is recovery, not consumption. An exhausted mind doesn't need shopping, it needs silence. An overworked soul doesn't need luxury, it needs alignment. When money is spent consciously, it heals. When money is spent emotionally, it distracts. One builds strength, the other builds dependence. Another subtle difference lies in how both groups define richness. Broke thinking defines rich as having what others admire. Rich thinking defines rich as needing very little to be happy. That is why truly wealthy people can walk into simple spaces and feel comfortable. They are not carrying the burden of proving anything. They don't need applause for their spending. Their confidence is internal. And because they don't leak money through ego, they retain it for things that truly matter: security, growth, and generosity. Freedom allows them to give without fear, help without calculation, and live without panic. So when you see someone spending less, don't assume they lack money. They may simply value freedom more than flash. And when you feel the urge to spend just to feel successful, pause and ask gently, what am I really trying to fix right now? Because money cannot heal insecurity, but it can buy time to heal yourself. The moment spending shifts from impressing others to protecting your peace, the journey from broke thinking to rich thinking quietly begins. Broke thinking sees money as a reward for effort. I worked hard, so I earned this money, now let me enjoy it. On the surface, this sounds fair, even healthy, but hidden inside this belief is a trap. When money becomes a reward, it gets emotionally attached to pain. The harder life feels, the more spending feels justified. Money then becomes comfort food for the mind. Stress leads to spending. Frustration leads to spending. Even boredom leads to spending. Over time, the brain is trained to associate relief with purchase. Instead of asking, how do I improve my life? The question becomes, what can I buy to feel better right now? This is how money slowly loses its power to change circumstances and is reduced to a temporary emotional patch. Rich thinking treats money very differently. For them, money is not a trophy, it is a tool. Just like a hammer is not admired but used, money is meant to build something: security, skills, systems, or time. A tool is never worshipped and it is never wasted, it is directed. When rich-minded people receive money, their first instinct is not celebration but allocation. Where should this go so that it works for me again? They don't ask, what did I go through to earn this? They ask, what can this help me create next? This shift removes emotion from money and replaces it with purpose, and purpose multiplies what reward can only consume. When money is seen as a reward, it is spent once and gone. When money is seen as a tool, it is sent on a mission. Rich people want their money to come back with friends. That is why they put it into learning, assets, systems, or businesses. Even when they spend on enjoyment, it is intentional, not impulsive. They understand that tools should not control the user. The moment money starts controlling decisions, what job you stay in, what risks you avoid, what fears you tolerate, it has stopped being a tool and started being a master. Broke thinking hands over control easily. Rich thinking protects control fiercely. There is also a mindset difference in how mistakes with money are handled. When money is a reward, losing it feels personal. A bad expense feels like failure, so people avoid looking at their finances honestly. They hide from bank balances. They delay budgeting. They hope things will work out. Rich thinking sees mistakes as feedback, not judgment. If a tool doesn't work, you don't cry, you adjust. If an investment fails, you analyze. If spending leaks, you fix systems. There is no drama, only data. This emotional neutrality allows growth. Money grows where clarity lives. It escapes where denial dominates. Broke thinking often waits for more money before acting wisely. Once I earn more, I'll save. Once I get rich, I'll invest. This is backwards. Rich thinking uses money, no matter how small, as training. Even 100 Indian rupees is treated with respect. Even small income is managed with structure. Why? Because tools require skill. If you misuse a small tool, you will misuse a big one too. Wealthy people understand that income doesn't create discipline. Discipline attracts income. They practice handling money properly long before there is a lot of it. That is why when money finally arrives, it stays. Another difference is how both think about time. Broke thinking uses money to escape time. Fast pleasures, quick relief, instant upgrade. Rich thinking uses money to buy time. Time to think, time to rest, time to learn, time to choose better paths. They invest in things that reduce future effort, automation, delegation, health, knowledge. They are not impressed by speed, they are impressed by sustainability. Our reward mindset burns money fast because it is chasing relief. A tool mindset slows money down so it can compound quietly. Ultimately, money behaves according to how it is treated. Treat it like a reward and it will visit briefly and leave. Treat it like a tool and it will stay, grow and serve. This does not mean life should be joyless or strict. It simply means joy should not sabotage tomorrow. When you stop asking money to make you feel better and start asking it to make your life better, everything shifts. The same income, the same world, but a completely different future. Broke thinking is deeply rooted in the present moment. It asks one main question: how can I feel comfortable today? When life feels uncertain, the future feels unreliable, almost imaginary. So today becomes everything. Decisions are made to reduce immediate pain, stress, or boredom. If something feels good now, it is considered worth it, even if it quietly steals from tomorrow. This mindset is not born from laziness, it is born from insecurity. When someone has experienced instability for a long time, planning ahead feels risky. What if tomorrow never improves, the mind asks. So comfort becomes a form of emotional insurance. But the tragedy is this: by protecting today too much, tomorrow is left completely unprotected. Rich thinking lives differently in time. It does not ignore today, but it refuses to sacrifice tomorrow for it. Rich people understand that comfort is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of options. And options are created slowly. They are built through preparation, patience, and consistency. When rich-minded people say no to something tempting today, it is not because they lack desire. It is because they see the invisible cost. They can imagine future stress more clearly than present pleasure. This ability to emotionally feel tomorrow's consequences is one of the most powerful mental skills behind wealth. They don't just think long-term, they feel long-term. Broke thinking often says, life is hard anyway, so I might as well enjoy what I can. This sounds realistic, even mature. But hidden inside is resignation. It assumes struggle is permanent and improvement is temporary. So effort is minimized and comfort is maximized. Rich thinking flips this belief. It assumes struggle is temporary and preparation is permanent. So discomfort is tolerated now to avoid suffering later. This is why rich people are willing to learn when it's boring, save when it's inconvenient, and wait when it's uncomfortable. They are not stronger emotionally, they are simply clearer about trade-offs. There is also a difference in how both respond to small choices. Broke thinking underestimates them. It's just one expense, it's just one day skipped, it's just one lazy decision. Because the future feels far away, small leaks feel harmless. Rich thinking respects small actions deeply because it understands compounding. One decision rarely ruins a future, but repeated patterns do. Rich people don't obsess over one bad day, but they are very alert to habits. They know the future is not created by dramatic moments, but by quiet routines, repeated when no one is watching. Broke thinking often plans emotionally, not strategically. It hopes things will somehow improve. It waits for motivation, opportunities, or luck. Rich thinking plans structurally. It doesn't wait for feelings to change. It changes systems. Budgets, routines, investments, schedules, these are not restrictions, they are safety nets. Rich people don't trust willpower because willpower fluctuates. They trust preparation. They assume future stress will come, so they build buffers. Savings is not pessimism, it is realism. Planning is not fear, it is respect for the unpredictability of life. Another key difference is how failure is viewed across time. Broke thinking sees failure as proof that effort is pointless. I tried, nothing changed, so it retreats back into comfort. Rich thinking sees failure as delayed feedback. This didn't work yet, what does it teach me? Because rich thinking is future-oriented. It is patient with results. It understands that most meaningful outcomes arrive slowly and unevenly. This patience allows learning instead of quitting. Where broke thinking asks, why is this so hard? Rich thinking asks, what is this preparing me for? Ultimately, the gap between broke and rich thinking is not intelligence, luck, or privilege. It is time perspective. Broke thinking protects today because it does not trust tomorrow. Rich thinking prepares for tomorrow because it refuses to be trapped by today. The moment you begin asking, what choice today makes my future lighter, instead of what choice today feels easiest, something fundamental shifts. You stop living on the surface of time and start building depth. And in that depth, real wealth, financial and personal, quietly begins to grow. Broke thinking waits for motivation. It waits to feel ready, feel inspired, feel confident. Action is postponed until emotions cooperate. The problem is, emotions are unreliable. They change with sleep, weather, praise, rejection, and stress. So when life becomes heavy, action disappears. I'll start saving when I'm motivated. I'll learn when I feel inspired. I'll change when life slows down. Slowly days pass, then months, then years, and nothing changes, not because of lack of ability, but because of dependence on feelings. Broke thinking gives emotions authority over behavior, and emotions, when placed in charge, often choose comfort over progress. Rich thinking understands something very simple but very uncomfortable. Motivation is a result, not a requirement. Rich people do not wake up every day feeling driven. They feel tired, bored, discouraged, just like everyone else. The difference is not emotional strength, but structural discipline. They act first, feelings later. They don't ask, do I feel like doing this? They ask, is this aligned with the life I want? Discipline is not harshness, it is self-respect in action. Rich thinking removes negotiation from important behaviors. Saving, learning, investing, showing up. These are not mood-based decisions, they are commitments. Broke thinking often misunderstands discipline. It sees it as punishment, as rigidity, as a joyless life, so it avoids it. I don't want to live like a robot, the mind says. But rich thinking sees discipline differently. It sees discipline as freedom from chaos. When habits are disciplined, the mind is relaxed. There is no daily decision fatigue, no constant guilt, no emotional drama. Discipline creates predictability, and predictability creates peace. The irony is this: the people who resist discipline most often feel the most trapped, and the people who embrace discipline quietly enjoy the most freedom. Another key difference is consistency. Broke thinking moves in bursts, very inspired one day, completely inactive the next. It waits for big energy to take big action. Rich thinking respects small, boring consistency. It understands that progress is not loud, it is quiet repetition. Reading 10 pages daily, saving a small amount regularly, learning one skill slowly. These actions don't feel heroic, so broke thinking ignores them. But rich thinking knows that consistency compounds even when motivation disappears. Discipline is what carries you on the days motivation doesn't show up, and those days are most of life. Broke thinking often gives up too early because it expects discipline to feel good quickly. I tried waking up early for a week, nothing changed. I saved for a month, still feel broke. This impatience kills progress. Rich thinking accepts delay. It understands that discipline works invisibly at first. Results lag behind behavior. Roots grow before fruits appear. This patience allows rich people to stay consistent long enough for change to become inevitable. Where broke thinking quits because results are slow, rich thinking continues because direction is correct. There is also a deep identity difference. Broke thinking says, I act when I feel like it. Rich thinking says, I act because this is who I am. Identity-based discipline is powerful. A disciplined person doesn't need constant motivation. They behave according to self-image. I am someone who manages money well. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. When identity changes, discipline feels natural instead of forced. Broke thinking keeps identity flexible. Rich thinking makes identity firm. And behavior follows identity effortlessly. In the end, motivation is a spark, but discipline is a fire. Sparks excite you, fires sustain you. Broke thinking waits for sparks and wonders why things never last. Rich thinking builds firewood slowly and steadily. It shows up on ordinary days. It honors commitments even when nobody is watching. And that is where real wealth is built. not in moments of excitement, but in quiet obedience to long-term values. When discipline replaces motivation as the driver, success stops being accidental and starts becoming inevitable. Thanks for watching. Must subscribe my channel.